Welcome to the Franchise Woman Podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles. I'm here with my co-host and friend, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. So first, Tracy, I recovered from last week's show. I'm ready to go again. We have two really beautiful guests with us today. So Brooke Yobo and Lindsay Kaiser. After years in corporate America, Brooke and Lindsay, an entrepreneurial sister duo, made the decision to embark on a career change and enter a male-dominated field of restoration, investing in DRYmedic to service the Southwest Florida region for all disaster restoration needs. The pair has become a trusted leader in their community. As working moms, franchising provided them with a flexible schedule and the ability to follow their dreams of owning a business together. So I'm so excited to have you ladies here. So thank you for carving out some time for us.
Thank you for having us. Happy to be here.
Yeah, there's so much about your story that I'm sure our listeners are going to want to hear. I know for me, I always wonder what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? I mean, not literally, but I'm wondering which of you said to the other, hey, this is a great idea, let's do it. Or maybe one of you stepped into it first and then said, oh my goodness, this is really something. I'm onto something here. Come join me. How did this sister entrepreneurship come about?
So, Brooke and I both, like she mentioned in our bio, we both worked in corporate America. Brooke more in the human capital operations side of things, and me so on the marketing side of things. And I think we'd always talked about, oh, this is what it would be nice to own our own business, and this is what we would do. We grew up with an entrepreneurial dad, so we saw him start businesses, and so it was something that was, you know, a conversation that was natural for us to have. It wasn't like a pipe dream. It was something that we figured we could discuss. So initially it took different forms. We talked about opening like a bakery and a coffee shop or like a fitness yoga studio. And it had taken different shapes and over, probably the course of like a couple years. And then I had connected with one of my closest friends had bought into a franchise. And the more I talked with her about what that looks like and, what that initial investment really can be on a variety of levels, that's when I came back to Brooke and I was like, okay, maybe it's not starting something really from scratch. Maybe it's going into a franchise because at this point, in that point in our life with the capital that we would need to start it up, it looked more realistic for us to make that happen. So previously before that, Brooke had kind of like taken that step to start down the road of, if we did go the route of a coffee shop, navigating what that looks like, putting a business plan, all that together, and being a little bit riskier and more bold than I am. And then when this franchise discussion came up, we started looking at different businesses and we knew we wanted to be in the home service space. So really when we did, kind of like a profile and assessment of like, really, what are our goals in running and having a business? And it wasn't just to have a business and just have something of our own. We ultimately do want to have something that creates more freedom financially for us, for our families, and also flexibility for us as moms of young kids to be more present with our families. And then to also do something that impacts our community. So looking at all of those things, when it came to thinking about financial security, we were like, we have to sell a lot of coffee to make that happen. So we needed to look at what might be a better fit. So we did start looking down the home services route and we looked at a few different businesses and ultimately, came across DRYmedic. And so it was kind of a joint thing. I don't think it was really like one of us that was ahead of the other. Brooke is definitely like more willing to be like risky and like step out, and I'm a very like safe person, and so I would say she was more of the one to like get us like going on this, but at the end of the day, once we got down the path and we were walking in it, like we felt very strongly like that we needed to hear from the Lord with each step that we took. And every time that, one of us would start to get nervous or whatever. The other one would be hearing something from the Lord about keep going, like just keep walking in it. And so that's what we did. We just were like, okay, God, if you're just going to keep opening up these doors and, making things clear to us, we're just going to keep walking in it. And each step would just kind of miraculously open, for us in the right, in that direction. And so we just kept walking in it. And now that's what we do every day, I guess. So,
And here we are, right? So it's interesting as I watch the dynamics here. You mentioned that Brooke is a little bit more of that risk taker, able to stick out her neck, where you're a little bit more security and safety conscious, Lindsay. So, which of course has me curious about your childhood. How is it we have two beautiful young ladies raised in the same family that really do have distinct but complementary personalities, let's say, right? So, Brooke, tell us a little bit more why you are comfortable taking risks and how the two of you are different and complementary.
Well, I will ask you, which one do you think is the older child?
I was just wondering that a little while ago, and it struck me because at first, Lindsay was doing a lot of the talking on the pre-conversation and she got on first, but it struck me a little while ago that it might be you, Brooke, who's the older.
100% of the time people guess that I'm the older one and I am the younger one, although I have more gray hairs than Lindsay and a little more wrinkles. But Lindsay is the rule follower. She is, the risk adverse one, like I would say typical first child.
Yeah.
I was the one, sneaking out at night, pushing boundaries. So I definitely think we complement each other. But yeah, I mean, on the scale of like, Lindsay's probably at a 1 on her risk level. I'm maybe at a 5. My husband is at a 37. So I think that there's also a dynamic in my marriage that is, there's been so many things that I've seen that we've taken leaps of faith on, and some have worked out, some have not. But I have seen that in taking risks, there's such like there's freedom in that, and you can always recover. So I think that maybe being married to him, I've gotten a couple more reps in taking risks and knowing that like we're going to come out on the other side and it's going to be okay. And some of them will lead to such opportunity and joy that I would have missed if I didn't take the risk. So, and on the same time with Lindsay being a little bit more risk adverse, especially in this business, when we're dealing with people's homes, she's completely over the field side. So, where I'd be like, oh, let's just move on, it'll be fine. She's like, no, we're gonna do this right. We're gonna slow down. We're gonna use the right chemical. We're gonna talk to the right contractor. So I think it's actually been a really good balance for us.
Yeah. I love this. Well, and I like that you highlighted that you built that risk muscle because you have a husband who is good at it, right? And so you've built the faith in the ability to take risk. And you used the word freedom, Brooke, that there is freedom in taking risk. I don't think I've ever had those two words put together in a sentence, but you did.
Yeah, I feel like we went along in the journey of like, are we going to do this? Are we going to do this? And at some point you got to just jump off the cliff and do it. And I feel like, we kind of like held at the end of that cliff for a little bit of time. And then we're like, what's the worst that can happen? If we don't do this, we're going to stay in the life that we want to get out of. So like, I will always remember this. One of the mentors I had, she said, if you want something to be different, you have to do something different. And so at some point we were like, we got to just do something different. And if it fails, it fails.
And I think even like to her point, we had that conversation of what's the worst that could happen? It fails and we go back to get another job. We're both like, competent human beings. Like we know that like it wouldn't be impossible for us to go and get another job if this was to fail. But there was also a different mentality that we took of like, what's the best thing that could happen? Like, what's the best thing that could happen? This thing could grow. We could get great employees and create a great culture. And, in an X amount of time, we can have more freedom and work less. And so, it's kind of like balancing both and like holding both things at the same time, that pushed us to kind of like go over the edge and to do it. So.
One of the things that struck me when you answered one of the questions a little while ago, I don't remember which one of you said it originally, but you were talking about walking in the Lord's word. And what struck me is that usually entrepreneurs, like, we do it alone, right? I mean, we do it with God, but by ourselves and no one else. What's different when you do it with a sister? What do you notice about each other's growth since day one until now? Having walked, having trusted, having taken risks that were also faith, based in faith. What have you noticed about each other's growth?
Oh, geez. You're trying to get the tears?
I was gonna
going on?
say, trying to get us to cry.
Tracy,
We
you
go
don't
right to the
start
tears.
jumping, okay? You did this on purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the first part in regards to that, like aside from us doing it together, is that like we're daily doing this, like following the Lord. So there's a daily choice for us to, no matter if it's a job or an employee or whatever the thing may be that's going on, for us to choose that we're going to trust the Lord. And there's some days it's easier to do that than others. But that has probably been, I don't know, I think I attribute to like looking at this last year. It was filled with ups and downs and new things to figure out and decisions to be made and challenges, good and bad challenges. But I think I mean, we just crossed our 1 year last week, and I look back to like what I felt like a year ago. And I did feel anxious and stressed and worried and uncertain and, all those things. And I feel like what we saw in this last year was seeing that like the Lord will provide. If we trust him and we just make the right, not even just make the right decisions, but we make the honest decisions and try to do things the right way, he will carry us through. So even when things seem low, there's all it takes is one job for everything to change, and he shows up at just the right time. And I think that now I'm like, okay, I think I remember driving yesterday and I was thinking like, okay, we're 1 year in, and the confidence that I feel now that like we're gonna make it each day, I'm like, what am I going to feel next year? And like the year after that, and like 5 years from now, because I look back to how different I felt a year ago. And that's all attributed to just our trust in the Lord and that he is faithful and that we know that he's going to show up even when times are hard. And when we feel like we're incompetent and we don't have what we need and the wisdom, like he intervenes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like probably, even aside from us doing this together, that is like the most pivotal thing for us. When we don't know what to do, we pray. When we don't, when we're feeling stressed, like she's quoting scripture. So that's what carries us. But I don't know if you have anything to say about that before I go on to
keep rolling.
But yeah, this is where you'll probably get us to cry. But when I think about her,
oh geez, maybe I go.
You go.
Bring it in. I would say on this specifically about having a sister is the most important thing when you're getting into business with someone is that you trust them. And I don't think there's anyone else on the planet that I trust more than my sister. I have had years with her history with her, to know that, she like this business cannot fail because of the grit that she has. We have the same value system. We are, and I also think the other thing that's so important is that we have such different skills. We have different methodologies and even how we think in certain ways in the business. So I think that's something that's really important to consider if people that are considering starting a business with somebody, do you fully trust this person? And do they have skills that are different than you? We tend to want to get into business with people that think like us. Lindsay and I just went through a conference and I really discovered so much about like, oh, wow, Lindsay is way more the subject matter expert. She's more the artist. She wants to learn the craft. I'm more the operator, the manager. Like that's how I think. We probably need another person that's more of like the entrepreneurial spirit. So something that can be different and not the same. I feel like that's helped us significantly. But just watching Lindsay, I mean, I feel like watching her faith grow in the Lord, but also in herself. Like I think that now she's like, I can do anything. Like I can go start other businesses. I like just seeing that she can do it. I've always known something about Lindsay that she'll do whatever it takes. But I've literally seen her do physical labor during hurricane season, with like a saw through a whole house of a wall. I've seen her do things to make this business work that have been so incredibly impressive, where I feel like I would tap out, but she hasn't. And then also just like the way that she can, I feel honored having her on the team and being my business partner when she walks into a room and can connect with anyone and make them feel like seen and loved and empathized with, but at the same time meet them with this professional ability to share about our business. I feel like that's just been amazing. So I would not recommend doing business with family to anyone, but I feel like we have this like unicorn of a relationship that I'm so honored and blessed by.
And the humility, as you're saying all of these incredible things about your sister, and she's just sitting there like so humble and, just full of humility. And, you can see that's part of the being faith-based, right? Is, thanking God for what you've given.
Yeah. Well, and it's been like that throughout our childhood. Just, I have been the younger one, Lindsay's been the older one. And so she has, and even in growing up in life, there were, even through sports, she had a lot of injuries. I didn't. There were things that, happened in life that gave Lindsay a lot of opportunities to stand on the sideline and cheer on her younger sister and not be jealous and not be competitive and not put me down, but like always was there being a cheerleader and building me up. And so it's really interesting, like even seeing that today, there's such an honor and respect level that I feel like we have because of the standard that Lindsay put in place as we grew up.
Wow. So, Lindsay, regarding Brooke, tell me more about Brooke and how you view her and the changes you've seen in her as you build this business together.
Yeah, it's like if I can do that without crying, because I like super like I'm really sappy. And sometimes I feel like not as articulate, but I literally say whenever anyone asks about like doing this business with my sister, it's like I couldn't do it without, I literally could not do it without her. And the reason that our business, I would say I consider us successful first year in. The reason our business is successful is because of her. I 100% believe that, because she is so wise. She knows so much in terms of like the operations of how to run a business and make smart decisions, that I think is very hard for, like if it was just me doing it, the backside of things that have to be done correctly in order to make a business run successfully are all because of her. I can go and sell a job and make sure it gets done, but like all the other things, taxes, and payroll, legalities, there's 500 million things. And I was even thinking, because we were looking at some financial things earlier, and I was like, I don't know what to do with all this. Like, I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I see this, we're making money. That's great. Like, I don't, but when I look at that, and the other thing is I was like, I confidently could be like, I could never look at a financial and I would trust her 1000%, because of just knowing the integrity that she has. Like, there's not a single doubt in my mind that she would always be doing the right thing from a financial standpoint and how she's managing the money in our business. But really, when it comes down to just like the operational side of things, there's a gift that she has that is far superior to many other men in business that I've ever seen. So that is where, like, I know that that's where I guess our complementary is, where areas that I lack, she excels, and vice versa, so that we can do this together. But yeah, I mean, she has challenged me in my faith. A big reason my faith has grown is because of her. Yeah, she always points us to the Lord. And yeah, I mean, from the start of our business, she's like, okay, we're going to meet each week and we're going to start in prayer and we're going to like thank the Lord for the things he did last week and ask him for things this week. And, being very intentional about our daily operations, not just being run successfully, but entrusting him. And so, yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, I'll start like weeping, but yeah,
Yeah, we're all gonna start weaving. In honor of International Women's Month, which is a big reason we really wanted you on the show, and we talked to Megan, and Megan said you gotta have these ladies on. You mentioned that that you're different than men in how you work together and how you build this business together. If you had done this with a man, or you had watched two men working together, talk to me about how it really would be different rather than working with your sister and working as two women, similar values, complementary skills, building a business.
Yeah, I mean, I think I definitely am in the boat. Like men are very valuable and the gifts that they have are very important and we need men in our business. Like I can't as strong as I want to think I am, there are things that men can do better than I can when it comes to the physicality of this job. And there are many other talents that they have that are valuable. I think for us, when it comes to just our business and, especially being in the trades, which is predominantly male run in terms of like from a business standpoint, most of the people that we work with from like a referral standpoint or partners are men. We've been very, very blessed that we've encountered, other small family businesses where it's a couple that are running it and all those kind of things as well. So there's a woman involved, but I do think there's a component to being in the trades as a woman that just has a different dynamic to it. I think that there's just another level of like compassion and empathy that we have like walking into the home. Most of the time we're walking in and it's the woman running the home. It's not all, we're not always dealing with the husband or the man of the home. Sometimes, most of the times we're with the mom and there's kids running around, and for them to just have like, you can see their guard come down just by seeing like a woman walk in the door and not I think that there's a fear that like, oh, whether they're not going to treat me with respect, I'm not going to know what I'm talking about, safety, whatever it may be. I think that there's that's a component to us that makes us unique in our business. I think the way we think about jobs and we think about all aspects of it, and maybe sometimes to a fault where we're like, we think about everything. And sometimes, even dealing with other contractors, they're just very cut and dry. They're not really giving you good information. They don't always pick up phone calls. They don't always respond to emails professionally. And that's not just because they're men. It's just because of the nature of these jobs. Sometimes like they're always on their phone, they're on the go, they're not in an office, whatever, they run it on their own. But I think there's another level of professionalism that we do try to bring to this business, that we give our customers like another level of transparency and I don't want to say like hand holding, but more comfort throughout the process than if we just were like, oh, we come in, we send you a bill and then we're done, so.
Yeah, I mean, women are naturally like nurturing. So I do think that we have that element. I think that I've seen countless times that, when Lindsay walks in the door and talks to the couple and their whole home is flooded and she's in tears, and Lindsay can pause on getting the service agreement signed and give her a hug and pray with her and give her some hope. There's elements of that I feel like we do have that may exist in male dominated restoration businesses, but there's just like little touches that we have, or like writing handwritten thank you cards to every client that we have, or just things that we try to do to be a little bit more detailed and special and compassionate. We definitely also have more tears in our office than if we were run by men. That's for sure.
Yeah, we're just wired differently. We have more hormones coursing through our veins.
Yes.
We're more sensitive, we're more heart oriented.
And we're definitely prettier too than all of them in the male businesses.
Oh,
Wow.
my goodness. Tracy, did you have a question, or otherwise I'm going to throw a question in there?
No, I did. It just like when it was in my brain and it went
And it
right
ran kaput stop.
laughing about that we're prettier.
Yeah, it's like we are. God created us that way, right? So I want to talk about like a purpose in your life. Your business is one that helps your client restore their homes after a disaster, right? But it really does sound like there's a bigger purpose in your life for being on this planet in this time. Can you address that for me?
Yeah, I mean, I know we've talked about God most of this podcast, but we do believe that we are not an accident and that God has given us specific giftings and has put us here in this city at this time in history. And so we don't want to waste that. Um, there's a reason why God called us to be in this business right now. This business is not our whole life. It's not going to be our whole life. We're going to probably run many more businesses at some point in our life, but we want to use our giftings in it. So, I mean, specifically for this, yes, we restore homes, we restore hope, but ultimately, we believe that we're in the family business. Like when you see doctors and they have kids that become doctors, well, our God, our Father is a restorer. He's in the business of restoration. So we also get to be in the business of restoration. And we get to go inside of people's homes. And yes, we get to help them in the physical, but we also get to, like, a lot of times we are praying while we're cleaning in their homes. Or, there's elements that we do inside homes that people will never know, but we want to make a difference with where we're at right now. I think the other thing is we get to interact with so many people that we never knew a year ago. It's rare that we're calling Bob the plumber and Joe the electrician, but now we get to interact with this entirely different group of people that we've never met before. And we get to engage in them with conversations. They're growing us, we're growing them. So I think if anything, it's like we want to leave an impact. We want to leave our fingerprints on this town in this time. And we want our children to see us doing something important as well, because we want them to see that they too can take risks and make impacts wherever the Lord will call them, even if it's scary.
Even if it's scary. And then Brooke will just push you over the edge and make you do it anyway.
Yeah. When she's like, oh, many more businesses. I'm like, how many?
We haven't talked about
How
this yet.
many? He's like, I don't know. There'll come a time where I'm like, are we done running all these businesses?
Yeah.
Can we just go and sit at the beach with a cocktail?
That, oh my goodness, that was some drop the mic on the, God restores and you restore. Because getting back to my question earlier that flew back into my mind, it had to do with when you walk into a home, like you said, and there is this distressed couple, they don't know what to do first. They're looking at you for solutions. And like you said, hope, you know, you're dealing with, it sounds like you're dealing with their emotions first and then dealing with everything else. And it sounds like there's an emotional safety net or an emotional safety net or emotional security built into that, rather than just calling somebody who's just going to say, okay, this is what's happening here and this is how much it's going to be and this is how long it's going to take, sign here. Right? It's like you're dealing with emotions, huh?
Yeah, I mean, we're walking into like their own sacred space, like their home, like this is where they live. And so there's always an element of like shock, unbelief, based on a varying concerns. I mean, there's some that are really small issues, but then there's some that are like, my whole home is flooded. I'm having to get rid of everything I have. The hurricanes, it's like we're walking in and there's an adrenaline rush for most of these people because they're having to work and make decisions quickly, and it can feel overwhelming. And I think the most important thing for us is that they know that we're going to be honest with them and that they can trust us, like that we're going to help them walk through the process. And I think that that's where if we can I don't want to say like, oh, if we can get them to trust us in the beginning, everything's easier. Like it's not necessarily a manipulation, but like in them honestly knowing that we want to help them. Like we're here to help. We're gonna get you through this and you're gonna get to the other side because it feels like in that moment, like I'm not gonna have a place to live. Like I have to give up everything. I'm gonna spend $100,000. Like I don't have this. Is insurance gonna cut? There's all these things going. What do I do? Who's gonna build it back? There's 500 million things they're thinking of. And if you're like, okay, let's just take this one step at a time, like we'll help you through it. We'll talk to your insurance company. We'll do whatever we can to help you through this. We'll give you recommended contractors, just taking them through it, but taking it one step at a time. If they can just, get that to calm down a little bit, that's more important than just like, all right, we're rolling in, we're ripping this out, we're taking this out. Here's the bill and that's it, So yeah, I think it's definitely a very, very important part that we're not just dealing with like material things, like it is an emotional aspect that's really important for us to consider.
And when we didn't know about that before acquiring this business, like we didn't know that
Wow.
a huge part of the job is basically essentially being like therapist, counselor, friend, family member to these clients. And so sometimes we joke and I'm like, man, it would be nice to have a business where people called us because they were happy. Like they wanted something that we were bringing happiness. We come when there's grief. We come when there's a bunch of, really difficult emotions. But at the same time, it's such a cool opportunity for us to like use this as ministry to like love on these people. Like I if anything, like we joke about it, but I would much rather have a business like this where we can really help people in our community than the coffee shop or the yoga studio or the happy things.
Yeah, we did recently. We had a call from we got referred a client from a previous customer that we took care of during one of the storms. And so we were back in that neighborhood. And while we were at one house, that other homeowner came over. We were able to go back into their house and see because they've recovered. This was 6 months ago at this point. So we were there, we got everything out and dried and clean. And then they've been in the build back process. And we were able to go back over and I was walking through her and I was like, I was going to start crying because I'm like, I know, when I left this house, it was in studs and, everything was out of it. There was no floor. It was gutted. And we don't get to always see when it's put back together. Normally that's when we're gone. It's been passed off. There's other contractors that come in. And so I was like, gosh, that was so nice to just be able to go back and see like she's happy. She got to actually redesign her bathroom and, get different floors and new furniture and it looks beautiful. And she's gonna, it doesn't mean that was easy and it didn't cost them a lot of money and that it wasn't hard, but it's like she is back in a safe space and it feels good for her to be home. So, and then I think that helped the client that we were with because she's like, my kitchen's getting torn
There's hope.
apart, and she was like, it's gonna get better. You're gonna get through it. Like you're gonna have your home put back together, so but it was nice to be able to go back and see it because we leave it, when it's clean and it's ready to go for it to get put back together, but it still feels like we're seeing like an unfinished product,
Oh my goodness, I can see that. I actually went through that myself. So I know that process of cleaning up all that mess and taking out the sheetrock and redoing and ripping up the floors. And so I know exactly what you're talking about. Let's talk about the future. Actually, Brooke, you kind of hinted at it, and Lindsay kind of goes, "What?" That lots of businesses. We're gonna. What I find fascinating is I want to talk about the future because you're both mamas, right? You have found a way as a family with your husbands, with the children, to make all of this work. Can you tell us about the future of your family and the future of the business and what that would look like?
Sure. Yeah. I'll tell the risky version. She can tell the steady version. No, I mean,
we'll meet somewhere in between,
yeah.
I'm sure.
And our kids are young. Mine are 4 and 6. Lindsay's are 5 and 7. So, we still are pretty hands-on with our kids right now. We are 1 year old, so we're still green. We're still learning a lot. We did have a really profitable year last year because 3 named hurricanes hit our city. So that did really give us a big jump. But ultimately, I mean, we're at a really great point in our business where we're paying ourselves, which I know a lot of business owners don't do. So that has been a really great opportunity. But the hope for at least just this next year is to continue to optimize our business and create really stable systems and processes and build a really great team so that we can still be very involved, but not be in the business. We want to be running the business, not doing the business. So that's really our hope in just this transition year. And ultimately over time, build it to a place where we do have a GM running it and we are still involved, but not, 100% operating the business. And then ultimately, I do think that there will be room for us to tap into other home services businesses in this area, whether that be another one under Authority Brands or another local business, because we can always go out and get more territories, but we really, really feel a call to this area of where we're at. So the more that we can, I guess, diversify our services or our products, whether it be within DRYmedic or outside of DRYmedic, I think that would be a huge blessing for us. But ultimately, yeah, I mean, we got into this business with the hope that we could one day, have this really thriving business and have passive income to be more present with our children. So I think that's ultimately, the goal while they're in the years where they're under our roof is that we want to be able to be present with them.
Yeah. And I just want to highlight that to those of you that are listening in to this. The wisdom in that, and you pointed that out, Lindsay, with Brooke and her she's so wise. With Authority Brands, you have DRYmedic and other home services businesses that actually complement one another, working with a similar client, right? So you can definitely scale your business without having to buy another territory in terms of growing DRYmedic. So thank you for bringing that up, because that is a unique positioning that Authority Brand has and DRYmedic has, is that you can build additional businesses that complement one another under the Authority Brands hybrid. So we are coming up on the hour. Lindsay, last words from you to women during this International Women's Month, and advice you would give to women.
Gosh, I mean, I think the biggest thing is like you can do hard things. I think there's just such a level of confidence that I have after doing this for a year that I can do much harder things than I ever thought I could do. And you don't know until you try it. So I think that's something that maybe those with a little bit of a riskier tendency, they do some of those things as they grow up. And it's, I did do things that were bold throughout my youth, but this was definitely like the boldest, I think, in stepping out to do this. So I think just being willing to take a risk and do something hard. Yeah, I encourage it. I encourage you to look for the right partners and the right people in your business, and then just to have the right purpose, to do it in vain or just for money is going to feel empty. So when you talk, purpose being a big component of this podcast, like that has to be greater than anything else that you're doing. So yeah, I think that that'd be the main thing, just like you do hard things. Yeah.
It's great advice. Tracy, I'm gonna punt it over to you for final words.
I'm just amazed with the two of you. A lot of times when we have younger entrepreneurs on the show, they have, how to say it, they don't have the experiences that somebody who's been in business many, many years have. So the story isn't as developed. And I have to tell you, the two of you have the most incredible story. I find that the two of you are so inspiring. And it amazes me because in this day and age, there are still a lot of people that don't like to talk about their faith when it comes to their professional lives. And I find it very motivating and very inspiring that the two of you not only talk about it, but you're led by it. And I think that a reminder, not only for me, not only, if I can speak on behalf of Rebecca, but our audience as well, we need these daily reminders, especially in this day and age where things can be so uncertain. Your parents did raise leaders. You're both really two incredible women. Great job. Congratulations on your growth. And this hour flew by. I have loved this conversation.
Me too.
Thank you. It's been
Thank-
so fun to talk with you guys. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you, Tracy. You're so articulate. You always amaze me how you can put all the pieces together. So what popped in my head, and I did a quick search to find the actual scripture, because as you were talking, I was thinking about, Brooke and Lindsay, and the third cord or the third strand within that cord is your Heavenly Father. It is God, right? And so I wanted to look up that scripture real quick and end with that. Ecclesiastes 4:12. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. And that's really what you guys have put together. So this is not just going to be a business where you are going to contribute and make a difference in your community, but it is a strong cord that will continue to grow, and it's just not going to be broken. It's not going to happen. So I appreciate you sharing your faith. I appreciate you talking about DRYmedic and everything you're up to. So thank you, ladies, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
I'm sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. I got all excited. Those of you listening in today to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forge. Like, comment, share this interview with Brooke and Lindsay. And of course, we'll see you next week on another episode.